All right, folks, welcome to the AEW Dynamite review for November 16, 2022. I'm actually starting this recording a little bit late because I got delayed in terms of watching it, so we're going to try to get through this in what may be record time. Not because there wasn't stuff going on in the show, but reality is there isn't really too much to explain or break down relative to what I would consider normal. This was the go-home show here before Full Gear. Obviously, there will be a Rampage episode as well, but I don't really treat that as part of the go-home because the way AEW structured them, you could basically skip Rampage and you're going to be able to go straight into Full Gear and you'd be fine. That isn't to say, though, that there are going to be some good matches on Rampage because based on what they promoted, I think it'll be interesting. I'll probably try to catch it myself. But obviously, Dynamite is your real go-home show for as far as this episode is concerned because we basically tied up some loose ends. We got to the finish line on a couple of these storylines leading into Full Gear. Now, the problem is, as I've mentioned for several weeks now, the show is a bit of a mixed bag. Was it a bad episode? No, I don't think it was a bad episode at all. But did it meet everything that I wanted it to in order to get to be a proper go-home show? No. Some stuff felt like it was rushed, but it was rushed because the pacing on everything was really awkward, and it was always awkward. And it's one of those things that now it leaves it kind of thrown together, and it's like, yeah, we got to the end, but I feel like we missed some stuff that we could have had in order to really get us to where we needed to be. So let's get into the review. Let's do this thing. It starts off with Claudio Castagnoli and Bryan Danielson taking on Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. This is kind of a precursor to them having a four-way match on the pay-per-view. So really quick, a solid match on paper. This feud is pretty tired and it may actually go on forever. Like it feels like it's gone on forever. So that was kind of my first bullet point on that. The elements make sense. The matches are solid as always, but some fresh matchups would be nice in lieu of this. So realistically, this feud is kind of drawn on its course. I expect we'll get a Claudio and Jericho rematch at some point. I don't know how that's going to lead into the Ring of Honor thing. They did tone down the Ring of Honor content on this episode, which I really do appreciate outside of this, really. And as far as that piece is concerned, it still leaves us in that weird murky situation where we have to get this in to every episode somehow. But at the same time, it's like, yes, the match will be solid. Yes, the participants are more than capable of going. And the match is a good one to get the crowd going on it. But it eats up a certain amount of airtime that I feel could have been used to build up some other stuff that really we needed leading into this go-home show. And I'll talk more about that as we go further along. Either way, Claudio had an impressive delayed suplex. So there was a sequence there. We had an impressive delayed suplex. And he actually went back and forth, like going down on one knee and then going down on the other knee with Sammy Guevara. It was actually quite cool. And then after that, finally, he did suplex him. And then Jericho comes in and gets suplex as well for the overall spot. In the end, Claudio wins with the sharpshooter / Scorpion Deathlock. We got to call it the Scorpion Deathlock. Can't call it the sharpshooter on the AEW show. But anyway, same move. Then we got a Moxley and MJF video promo. We're going to get a bunch of those leading into their confrontation, which ends off the show. And I'll talk about that when we get there. Then we get a Darby Allin black and white video promo with Sting driving the car. And Darby Allin is again inside of a bag and he's bleeding and it's very artistic, very artsy. Then we get a little bit of a response from Jeff Jarrett as, the opposition to that. I literally wrote yawn. It's like, I already don't care about Jeff Jarrett. And we're only a couple of weeks in. So it's whatever. Fine. We're going to have the tag team match on the pay-per-view. We'll get there. Anyway, so then it's Anthony Bowens taking on Swerve. So the Acclaims are still super over with the crowd. Anthony Bowens is going to have a nice singles match to go along with Swerve Strickland. So on paper, this sounds great. Then it cues to their music video, which, to be clear, the Acclaimed comedy doesn't really do much for me. But just to be clear, I did note a couple of small points. Starts with them pretending to be announcers interviewing Captain Insano. So we got a little bit of a throwback there with Paul White redoing his Captain Insano persona. So anyway, whatever. Then we have two goofs pretending to be Swerve in Our Glory. And it just goes on for a couple of minutes. It's a music video. And they basically make fun of, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. So there you go. It's the music video. The crowd liked it, so it's fine. Now, my question that I put in here, my note, why wouldn't Swerve just interrupt this to get ridiculous heat? Like, why would he actually allow the whole music video to play out? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So finally, Swerve kind of saunters in. He comes down and he gets attacked with Billy Gunn, gets thrown out with Max Caster. So now it ends up being a one-on-one match. Swerve ends up winning. Bowens is clutching his shoulder. You'll notice that, as usual, I kind of skimmed through a lot of the action because, as I say, there are great matches on this card. And I'll talk more about that towards the tail end here, is that I'm never going to be the kind of guy that's going to spend a lot of time talking about the blow-by-blow in-ring. I'll watch it, and it's one of those things where I'm enjoying it. It's great. And AEW is never lacking for great television matches, but the problem is television matches usually don't have stakes. And again, as I go through the review, there's going to be these little points where I'm going to point out, hey, this thing. But if you hear me talking about a match a little bit and talking about a lot of sequences and thing in a match, it's usually not a good thing. It better be exceptionally good, or it's something where I got some serious questions. We'll get to that. Next is a video promo and Nyla Rose taking on Jade. And this video promo I liked because it kind of conveys the whole silliness of this entire feud. Jade literally makes the perfect point. Says Nyla can steal her title and nobody can do anything about it. And I just say, fair point, Jade. Nice job, Tony Khan. Obviously, you don't have control of the situation. You can't even force Nyla Rose to give back the title. And then on the graphic, Nyla Rose has TBS champion in quotation marks in there. I thought that was a nice touch. I really did enjoy that on the graphic for the pay-per-view. Then Tony Schiavone is in the ring to interview Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe kind of twists the whole shocking side of it. He refuses to wait around and be a victim. So, he got to Wardlow before Wardlow would get to him. So I kind of like the logic behind it, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, just to make it fit the narrative. But then Powerhouse Hobbs comes out to interrupt him, says he's going to go to the ring and kick his ass, and then as he's about to do that, then Wardlow's music hits, he comes out, the three guys end up fighting, they have to be pulled apart by a bunch of folks, separated out, and then Wardlow ends up jumping over the top rope onto a crowd of them, and then stands tall at the end of the segment. It was an impressive physical feat. This Wardlow shows that he has this great athletic ability in addition to his power. It just sets up for Haas fight. We'll talk about later on exactly what it's going to settle into, but it's Haas fight. Anyway, then we got a Britt Baker backstage promo. Now I want to take a second and think about this one because it was a bit interesting. They went kind of a sincere route, kind of playing off the fact that Saraya in the previous promo had basically kind of diminished her accomplishments, talked about all the things that Saraya had done. My point is kind of a counter is that Saraya had also been basically retired at 25. She had a very impressive run, but a lot of that came as a result of there just being right time, right place. Her talents were obviously there. I don't think the WWE actually used her talents to their fullest. Her run was actually very shockingly brief. Now, she had obviously been wrestling since she was literally a teenager with a wrestling family and everything. But some of the stuff is like, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. It's true. But the reality is the last 5 or 6 years, she hasn't done anything really as far as wrestling is concerned outside of participating in some outside elements of it. Doing the bit with the backstage show with Renee Young and / Renee Paquette and CM Punk briefly during that whole bit. So that she did that and she had done a GM role and a couple of those things. And she briefly had, her run with Absolution before obviously she got injured and basically put her on the shelf for 5 years. But the reality was, like, over the last 5 years, Britt Baker has done technically infinitely more in wrestling. And Britt Baker went the more sincere route, talking about her accomplishments, talking about how she had developed so quickly, which is true. So that was an element. That's why I wrote that it took a bit of a sincere route to it. And then she actually went into saying how she respected Saraya, and then also playing up the fact that, if she thought she was too good for what AEW stood for, then she could go, which was an interesting angle to take into it. More of a closer to a kind of a babyface kind of tweener kind of promo. And then it was contrasted strangely with what would come later with from Saraya. So both the ladies got a chance to at least say something on the show, which is good. For the go home show portion of this, it makes sense. We already established that Saraya's been medically cleared and she's going to have the match. So they're going to do it. And that's going to be a big comeback match. So as far as the story leading into it, at least they've gotten one. And that's where I'm going to contrast it to the other little feud leading into this. And I'm disappointed in the way that other one played out. This one, they've gotten at least something out of it, although it did feel kind of rushed and weird, haphazard, and speed up and slow down in the way they got there. But they got there anyway. So Tony Schiavone commented as well that Britt Baker didn't want to be there for the promo, which I thought was a good touch, kind of playing into this more sincere kind of angle on this promo. Next up is the match with Top Flight and AR Fox taking on Death Triangle. Again, great high flyer showcase match. So really, I kept it really simple as far as my points. Go check it out if you're interested in watching some high flyers go at it, because Death Triangle, AR Fox, and Top Flight, you're going to see a showcase, especially from all those guys in the athleticism on display. I would say a great television match. Check it out if you enjoy that kind of thing, and you'll enjoy it. Death Triangle ended up winning, and then we lead into a Pac promo. So this actually played into one of the big takeaways of this show. So he references the videos and the rumors. So I'm glad somebody's at least watching the program. So Pac was obviously watching and saw all those little allusions to the Elite and kind of alludes to them as well. So in the end, he's basically saying, like, if you're going to be around, come find us. Effectively, I'm paraphrasing, but effectively he's saying, like, we know that we're reading between the lines, but if it's going to be you, then, show up. So then at that point, then the video starts playing, you get the ticking clock, and then the graphic materializes with Death Triangle, and on the right side it's empty, but then kind of anti-Thanos snapping. All of a sudden the Elite materializes on the other side for the Master of Full Gear. So it finally establishes and clarifies it. Pac grabs the microphone again, says, thanks for their transparency. So there you go, good. So the Elite via video package is officially going to be in the match. They're going to have a trios championship match at Full Gear, which should be a tremendous match and a big comeback for them. Probably wise to, even though they alluded to the whole thing where it was pretty clear they were going to come back at Full Gear, but it was wise to at least put them on the video graphic. It was smart to do that to at least like make it abundantly clear on the go home show. Yes, guys, the Elite will be there at Full Gear. Order the goddamn pay per view. Which at the end of the day, and I maybe should mention this now, the point of a go home show is supposed to be to sell the pay per view. You need to tell me why I need to order it. I'm going to order it because I can see the card is solid and I enjoy AEW and I enjoy the show. I'm going to order it. But if somebody's on the fence, give them a reason, making it abundantly clear the Elite will be there for that match and there's going to be a great match on that card. Great. That's a good selling point. At least that's a time you don't drag it out unnecessarily beyond that point. Next is a replay of Lance Archer attacking Ricky Starks, and Ricky Starks promo kind of leading into that. They're going to have their match on Rampage. Fine. Ethan Page taking on Bandito is the next match in the ring. Ethan Page is on the microphone delivering a promo, declaring he'll win the tournament and win the title at Winner is Coming. Appreciate the confidence. Ethan Page wins by Ego's Edge. Again, another impressive showing by Bandito, showing off a whole bunch of skill sets, power. I like Bandito, and hopefully they make good use out of him because he is entertaining to watch. So I do appreciate him there. I think it's good that Ethan Page is getting a little bit of a run up here. So it's good because I'm a big fan of Ethan Page, so I enjoy his work. So it's one of those things where I don't know where it's going to go with it. I'm concerned about where they can go with it, given where it looks like the title picture has to go. But nonetheless, if it results in Ethan Page at least getting some TV time, being able to have some good matches and having some fun doing some stuff out there, I'm for it. I'm in favor of it. So next up is the promo for Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. So that match will now be in a steel cage at Full Gear. So great. We got the stipulation match. So I think that's smart. Next up here is the Saraya promo. So important thing number one, we got separation between the two promos. I appreciate that program format standpoint, so that's great. The Saraya promo, in contrast to the Britt Baker one, that was very short. She basically just said, she's tired of the back and forth. It's like, I understand that they pre-taped all of these, but at the same time, it's a weird kind of follow-up to it. It feels disjointed from that perspective, because it's almost like in the promo, Saraya is acknowledging that she heard the previous promo, because obviously it's all pre-tape, but she's acknowledging, quote unquote, that she heard the promo, but then kind of dismissing it, even though it was more of a sincere promo. It was just a weird combination of the two promos juxtaposed against each other. It was just odd. So again, kind of a weird, flat way of entering into the match. I'm hoping the match is good, but we're going to have to see. I have no idea. So next up is a promo for Akiyama versus Eddie Kingston. It was actually a tag team match, so I originally thought it was them, just the two of them, but it's going to be a tag team match for Rampage. So again, should be another fun match from that perspective. And then we've got the token women's match in there. We got Anna Jay taking on Toni Storm for the interim AEW Women's Championship Eliminator. Now, I've got a couple of points for this. Remember what I said earlier that I don't talk about the blow-by-blow of matches? I'm going to do it a little bit here, but I also have some specific points about this match that I wrote down. Point number one, why Anna Jay? No, seriously, why Anna Jay? I don't get it. Point number two, I hate eliminator matches with the champion, and I do, because I think it's dumb. It's a WWE trope, but shown up in a different window dressing. It's like, well, if they win this match, then they get a title match against the champion. Why wouldn't you have an eliminator with two top contenders where the winner gets a match against the champion? That makes more sense in an eliminator. Why should a champion have to be the one to be participating in the championship eliminator? Where AKA if they beat them, well then great, you don't have to deal with them again. But if they beat you, then you have to deal with them again. And then the champion lost, which is weird. Like, this scenario just plays out very strangely is what I'm trying to say. I'm still not a fan of eliminator matches. I've made my point, but I just wanted to reiterate it one more time. 3, I'm glad Toni Storm gets a match on the Go Home show. Yes, that's good. And then number 4, please drop the idiotic interim tag already. For goodness sake, Thunder Rosa's not coming back possibly until next year. Drop the interim tag. Maybe after Full Gear. I'm hoping that they can just drop the interim tag. Just call her the women's champion. Be done with it. As a bonus point here, I actually had to double back and rewind to make sure I read it right. How on earth has Hannah Jay won 29 matches in 2022? I don't remember her having 29 matches. I'm confused. Legitimately confused. Now, next from here, I do make a couple of points from this match. I say Toni Storm literally has to watch where Anna Jay is to give her enough time to connect with the offense. There was a point where she was basically on the turnbuckle. She was kind of looking behind her to make sure she was positioned well so that Anna Jay could hit a backstabber. And then after the backstabber, it's like, I'll get into it in a second, but it wasn't good. Like, it felt disjointed every time Anna Jay had to hit offense. And of course, Toni Storm knows what she's doing, so she can hit the offense fine, but she kind of had to slow down some elements to make it work for Anna Jay, which again goes back to my point number 1. Why Anna Jay? If you're going to have a match, pick somebody in the back who's serviceable, pick somebody in the back who at least has that in-ring experience. I've got a couple more points about this, but anyway. So character-wise, as a heel, I don't mind Anna Jay. as a heel, I kind of enjoy some elements of it. I enjoyed when she goes a little bit crazy and just threatens to choke out random people in the back. I actually find that very entertaining. However, the there's more that needs to be developed here. Like, she doesn't actually have a full rounded character. She's just kind of randomly crazy, arrogant, randomly crazy. It's not much to say as far as a character wise in terms of depth, but it's something. Like, as a heel, at least I do enjoy elements of what she's doing. But in ring, she's been stuck in neutral forever. Like, I don't feel like she's actually evolved at all. You can see the potential from the perspective early on. This goes back years now, it feels like, where she was originally out there. She has a great look. Like, she is a very attractive lady. You can 100% market the hell out of her. But for goodness sake, somebody get her in the ring and teach her a couple different moves, because some of those move sets she chooses are terrible. And I'm going to cover a few of those, but like, man, it's terrible. So there's this move where I mentioned she did a backstabber. And then right after that, she follows it up with I guess it's a slide into kind of a weak kick. And it looks terrible every single time. Like, it's literally the worst choice for offense. It looks horrific. And they put it on TV against the champion, leading into the go home show where she's going to be defending the title against a legitimate contender. And like, this looks awful. Anyway, so then I say Anna Jay might have delivered the worst J kick I've seen with her. And there's been some bad ones that I don't think could have connected if you gave her another 2 days to try to connect with it. It's bad. Anyway, there was a great hip attack from Toni Storm leading into Texas Globally for the win. Mercifully, the match ends. Again, I'm happy that Toni Storm has a match on the go home show. That's good. For goodness sake, feature your champion. But at the same time, like, this was not the right person to choose for this assignment. I needed somebody else to do this. Anyway, so Jamie Halter's music plays. And again, this is where I'm going to contrast this with the Britt Baker and Saraya build. Even though I'm not super 100% happy with it, at least there were elements of it that made sense. They had multiple confrontations. They got to have an in-ring promo against each other. Juxtapose this with what I'm about to say. Jamie Halter's music plays. She comes out. So all of a sudden, okay, we're going to get some kind of a confrontation, maybe a promo. What is it? They stand face to face. They're talking. There's no microphone on them. They're just kind of talking. They're not going to fight each other. But at the same time, it's like she had to come out to the ring to like stare at her. And then they like push each other. And then Jamie Halter leaves. So we went through the trouble of doing all that for a brief stare down. A brief stare down on your go home show for your actual championship. To be clear, the only thing they've really had as far as build was a video package where they both got to speak a little bit. Good. And they broke down some of their history and the fact that they had room during the pandemic. Okay. So you've got some kind of a connection between the two. That makes sense. And that's it. They've never had a face-to-face, interview confrontation, like any of the stuff that Saraya and Britt Baker got for their portion of it, even though it wasn't perfect. They at least got the sit-down interview. They at least got the face-to-face. They at least got to deliver promos to each other outside of that video package. And this is for one of your championships. Not great. Like, that's the opposite of what you want. And this was the go-home show. The go-home show was basically just staring at each other. You could have done that 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it would have at least made sense. Right now, in the go-home show, it was like, that was kind of a flat landing. Okay, the match is probably going to be fine, but it was just a flat way to reach the destination. It was very odd. And the shame of it is that in terms of build, even though it had some bad and weird segments leading into it, there was more build to the Nyla Rose and Jade thing. They've had weeks and weeks. They did it in multiple places, and at least there was a reason for Jade to be mad at Nyla Rose, and at least there was some comedy built into it. Like, it at least had some build. This was not great. For a go-home show, I wrote down literally, for a go-home show, this was an underwhelming build with a weak finish. And that's a shame, because I enjoy Toni Storm, and I enjoy Jamie Halter, and I would love for them to have gotten a proper build of some kind, that got them to that line. So anyway, right after that, we get a very long promo, rundown of the Full Gear card. One notable thing that I mentioned, alluded to it before, is that Hobbs, Samoa Joe, and Wardlow are going to do a 3-way for the TNT Championship. So you're going to get 3-way Hoss fight. We're going to have that. And then we conclude the show with a Moxley promo, which again is great. I did laugh. I did note it here that he forgot the pay-per-view was on Saturday. He actually said Sunday. He's used to the regular schedule. So he finally gets attacked by the Firm. I'll make some solid points about MJF, what John Moxley is. He talks about himself and then talks about MJF and what he is, and he's not super impressed, and he gives a lot of good reasons and understandable for his character. And then he gets attacked by the Firm. MJF makes a save, cuts a promo. He gets cut off by Moxley. Moxley finishes his promo and gets reminded that it's Saturday because it was funny. I actually enjoyed that he recovered that when he goes, he was about to say Sunday again. He goes, the pay-per-view is on Saturday or Sunday? And then MJF tells him it's Saturday, and then he corrects himself, which I actually found was very funny. It was a good stare down. So to be clear, you got to stare down here also, but you got a stare down here where both characters actually got to say something, as opposed to just a stare down, a light shove, and then that's the end of it. You see how this contrasts to the other one that I just talked about? You actually got a stare down, but both of them got to say something to finish this build, and the next time we're going to see them is going to be in the ring at Full Gear for a championship. Very big difference in how we decided to treat the two things, but anyway, this has been one of the criticisms I've had of AEW for a while, where we'll get certain things that, like, this makes sense, this was sequenced well, this was paced well, this was executed well, I could see some ways this could go, and the other one is like, oh, crap, it's the go-home show. We should probably do something. We really haven't done any build, have we? No. Get them to stare at each other in the ring for like a minute. That'll do it. That'll sell it. Guys, come on. So overall, this show, I'm going to give it a C-. Not because it was a bad show. There were good matches on it. There were segments that I thought were interesting. Like I said, Britt Baker taking the more sincere route on it, considering her character, is interesting. I did find that enjoyable. There has been at least a build with it, even though it's been awkward at times. Sometimes it's been disjointed how we've arrived at it. There have been some other elements of it that I'm kind of questioning, but you've got some solid matches in between. You got the reveal that we're going to get the Elite at the show, so that was good for the crowd. The card on the Full Gear card looks solid. It looks solid. I won't say it's the most stacked card, but it looks really good. I appreciate a lot of elements to it, and there were some storyline elements to different feuds that are culminating in the Full Gear pay-per-view, which I think is solid, and I think it's good. So I can't say it's bad, but I have to consider it from the perspective of a go-home show that has a very specific task. And as far as the task of selling the pay-per-view outside of telling you the series of matches that you've got, this one I think fell very flat in terms of as a go-home show. As a standalone episode of Dynamite, if you provided this to me a couple of weeks ago, I probably would be a lot happier with it. I'd probably be closer to a B- or a B. Just because, okay, I'm willing to give you a little more time to build it. But here we are. We've arrived at the destination. We're about to go into the pay-per-view, and some of the builds just didn't get there. It's unfortunate. And again, I think the matches will make up for a lot of the ground here, but it's just been awkward the way we've arrived at a lot of these destinations. So I'm going to give it that C-. I think that's the grade I'm comfortable with. So I think that's it for me this time around. We'll chat again after the Full Gear pay-per-view. I'll be doing a rundown after that one because I'll be checking out the pay-per-view, and then I'll set up a recording right after that. Otherwise, if you got any comments, I'd be curious to see what you thought about this episode. Feel free to throw that in the comments section. I'll reply back. Otherwise, like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more, and we'll catch you in the next one.